Hello and welcome back to my video series on creating a dynamic or database driven website using PHP and MySQL. Today we are going to explore the exciting world of MySQL, and we're going to create a database and a couple of tables inside that. We'll create one table by hand and populate it with some data. We will also look at how you can import SQL from another database and create a table and data that way. So I'm actually working on WAMP server, so it's a local server running on my laptop, so I'm not online for this. And I'm just going to go to the database. The way I do that is just once I'm running it is localhost /phpmyadmin. If you're not familiar with WAMP server and how to use it, I suggest you just have a look online, but it's very, very simple. The advantage obviously of WAMP is that, or I think it's XAMPP's another one, or MAMP for Mac. The advantage of these is that you do not need to be online to run the database and test your PHP, which is a huge advantage. Also, we'll be developing this locally, and then later on I can show you how you might go about exporting your site to a live server online and moving your database and setting that up there, and what sort of changes you need to make to the settings on your site. So we'll look at that later on in the series. But anyway, today here I am in my phpmyadmin interface, and I'm going to create a brand new database. And so all I do is I go to the databases link at the top, and where it says create, I'm just going to give it a name. So I'm going to call mine sheet tutorial, and it's that easy. My database has been created. There it is over on the left, and apparently it needs to be all lowercase, so there you go. Now, creating a table. By default, you can see there are no tables in my database, so I'm going to create my first one. Now, I would say it's normally very important to plan these out ahead of time. Now, in my case, this is going to be my category list. So, if I come back to my web page, across the top here, where the links go here, I'm going to have the different categories of clothing. Now, in this case, I'm only going to have two fields each. I'll call this category. I tend, just so before I go off on a tangent, I would always give my table names, I make them lowercase, and I tend to make them in the singular rather than plural. So although there will be multiple categories, I make the table singular category. Now, in terms of number of columns, I'm going to give that 2. Now, the reason for that is obviously I need to have the name of the category as a record, but each category will also have its own unique ID number, and that's actually how our website will be referring to these. While we'll display the category name, we'll actually be referring to it by number. So I'll just hit go, and that brings up this. So my first column is going to be category ID. So this is going to be the primary key. It'll be an integer, which is a number. Now, I know that I'm only going to ever have 5 in here, so I'm just going to put a length of 1. That's the number of characters. So that means a maximum number of 9 categories in this table. I could not have a 10th one. I would get an error if I tried to add an extra one. The good news is you can come back in and add to that later on. That would give me up to 99 if I had 2 characters. Try to future-proof though if you can. It's nice not to have to come back. Across the right here, I'm going to go to my index and set this as being my primary key, and I'm also going to set it to auto increment, and that'll be very important once we start adding and deleting these using our own web interface that we build. The second column is going to be the name of the category. Now, in terms of format, I'm going to use varchar, which is similar to text, but I can control the length of it, so I'm just going to make it a maximum of 30 characters. So I'm just going to save that, and I have my table. So if I just click on that table, when I do, it tells me that there's an empty result set, which means there's nothing in it. Obviously we haven't put anything in there yet. So I'm just going to click on insert, and I'm just going to use the phpmyadmin interface to do this. So I know I've got 5 records, so I'm just going to do all 5 in one go. I can change that. And down the right hand column, I don't need to enter the category ID because that has actually been set. When I put an auto increment, it's automatically going to set this to 1, the next one to 2, and so on. So I'm just going to put them in order, and I think the first one is skirts, I think that was dresses, then it was pants, jackets, finally accessories. Hopefully that's how you spell it. So once I've got all my records in there, I can just click on go. If you have more than 5, obviously you could change the number here. You don't have to have a whole 10, you can just stop. Like if I had 4, for example, I could just hit go up there. Hit go, and there you go. It runs the SQL code, and actually you can see the SQL code here working. And if I browse now on my table, you can see there are my records. Now you can edit these anytime you want, you can delete them and so on. So again, it's not essential to get them perfect first time. Useful, but not essential. So that's how you'd create a table by hand, and obviously the first time you start building a project, that's what you'll be doing. In this case, the second table I want to create is the stock table, and that's quite a lot larger because there's all the stock items. So another thing you can also do is you can actually import things. So if I just I'll go back to my table, you can see I only had the one table. If I click on import here, I can just browse and choose the file I wish to import. Now, oops, gotta find it now. The file that I've provided you is actually sitting inside the assets folder in the zip file that you'll find a link to in the description below the video. And stock.sql, when you import that and run it, just hit go, it will run a bunch of SQL in the background and create this stock table with all this information in it. Now clearly that's a lot easier than doing all that by hand. Now ultimately when you're building your own site, you will have to enter this stuff by hand. I tend to start by putting some dummy data in for each record, so I've got enough records so I can do some testing. I don't really obsess about getting the correct data in to start with. Dummy data early on is important, and then as you build your own admin panel in the back end, then you can start to enter the data in yourself. Or of course you could always pay a student to do it. So anyway, that's a very quick tutorial on how you can use the phpmyadmin interface to create a database, create a table, and also to import SQL to create another table and data.